Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to today's weekly Sohbet and Dhikr on this Thursday, the 10th of June 2021. I hope everybody is well, wherever you're tuning into this from. And if that isn't the case, then, my heart goes out to you, and may Allah make things easier for you and help you through whatever you're going through. Life is like that. We can have it good, or we can have sufferings. And ultimately, there is a degree of suffering in everybody's life. It is part of what makes us human and part of what life is about on this earth. The Buddha, he famously pointed out that life is suffering. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be suffering all the time, but it does mean that there is an element of suffering in our lives. So, all spiritual traditions point this out in one way or another. I mean, you have the very it's drastic, I would say. Yeah, there's no getting away from it. Example of someone like Job, Salam, or Ayub, as he's called in Arabic, who went through tremendous sufferings. And I read the story of Job when we were going through the pandemic, because it really made me think. I say going through the pandemic, we're still not over from what we can tell, but hopefully things are getting better in most places. But then there's a third wave of the virus in Africa and in India, even in China. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say when this will really be completely over. And even when it is, there'll be other viruses, there'll be other things. But I mean, we've been on this earth for, not us personally, but as a species has been on this earth for millions of years. So we've had to contend with viruses and germs throughout all of that time. And inshallah, one way or another, we will get through. But during the pandemic, I did read the story of Job, as it does make me think, because we were going through difficulties during the pandemic. But even though many of us were going through difficulties, the difficulties that we were going through pale into, or for most of us, pale into insignificance compared to the difficulties of Job, salam. And one wonders how someone could even keep their faith as intact, especially as intact as he did, after going through everything that he suffered. I was reading a Sohbet of Maulana Sheikh Mehmet, and he mentioned something about suffering must be blessed because Allah gave it to the prophets. This is quite an interesting perspective, and not one that we would normally think about. But you see, our sufferings are also, if we didn't suffer, then we wouldn't know joy. The two things go hand in hand. If we never have any kind of suffering, then how would we appreciate joy and happiness and peace? You see, for a lot of people, we approach life as we want certain things in life. And we chase after those things, we run after those things to try and get those things. And those things are usually things that we enjoy doing, or we enjoy possessing, or we enjoy experiencing. You're one of these. So it's mostly what people chase after are things which they find enjoyable. And this comes from our basic nature as an egoistic creature. Each of us has an ego. And what I mean by that, I don't mean the, I mean, it does include it, but I don't mean the extreme ego of some people that, you know, is quite outrageous, but everybody has an ego. And that ego, it begins with just saying I, and thinking that I am separate or I am better than other people. This is from the ego. Whereas if we begin to introspect and see things how they really are, we realize that we are a member of the human species. And there are many other humans around us who are all quite similar. We obviously vary a little bit in qualities and skills and abilities, but we're all very similar. It doesn't matter if you're in the UK or you go to Indonesia or America or Africa, you will meet people. And even if those people look a bit different from us, but they'll have intelligence, they'll have skills, they'll have abilities. And, you know, our abilities and stuff might vary a bit, but what we share is actually much more than where we're actually differing. And it usually balances out in one way or another. If somebody is a very good artist, they might not necessarily be a good engineer. You know, if they're a good engineer, they might not be a good cook, for instance. They might not be a good chef. Or they might be, you know, if they've got short-sightedness, then maybe they've got better hearing. If they've got bad hearing, maybe they've got perfect vision. You know, usually things balance out one way or another. But either way, the similarities between people are much more than very different. And we begin to realize that how can I say I and thinking of myself so separate when I am part of a species where there's lots of people like me who have all been given similar things to what I've been given by the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we start to realize that not to be like that, but that concept of I and feeling separateness, and also the other thing we realize is we're interdependent on each other. No matter how rich or poor we are, no matter whether we live in Britain or in an African country, we are interdependent upon our neighbors, upon our community. And whether that is through helping each other in a non-profit kind of way, or, you know, through family, through communities just pulling together, or even if we are buying things with money, we have to go to a shop, we have to purchase an item, we have to purchase, hello, nice to meet you. We have to purchase food, basics, you know, food and water. Even if we're going about this through a capitalistic system. So we're still, well, where does that water come from? Where does that food come from? Either we dig a well in the garden, you know, or we have to get water piped in or buy it in bottles or something, you know, otherwise without water we will die. So if we haven't dug our own well, or we don't have a creek coming through our garden that we can take the water from, then we are buying that water from someone else. So that means we are dependent upon that person. Whether they're giving us water or we're buying water from them, we're still dependent upon them. The same with our food. We eat food. Where does that food come from? Either we grow it ourselves, or if we don't grow it ourselves, then we have to buy it from other people. And the reality is, we all, to some degree, share food like this, or buy food, or one way or another. We don't produce everything that we need ourselves. Even the most self-sufficient people don't. So when we start to think about these things, we realize that even if we're just looking at it, not necessarily from a religious or spiritual perspective, but just analyzing things, we begin to realize that we are not independent. We're actually totally dependent upon other people, upon our environment, even upon nature. You know, it's like if nature is not operating properly, we don't have clean water. We don't have food because it's being destroyed by pests or disasters within the environment. So we're dependent on the natural world too. Now, ultimately, the person who starts to see things from a more spiritual perspective realizes that all of this is provided by the Creator, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we're ultimately all dependent upon Allah. But it manifests through nature, through other people, through all the other things which Allah has created. But before we get to that point, we have this characteristic of ego. And this is how a lot of people are within this life, within the world. We chase after things which please the ego. Unless we realize and start to see things from a different and a deeper perspective, in which case that might start to shift into helping the community, helping the environment, not being so selfish, because we realize that unless we help with the people or work with other people, then we will suffer ourselves anyway. Even that, you could say, it's also from an egoistic perspective, but it is an ego which is being tuned to be more in tune with the reality that we're in. Of course, the best is to transcend the ego and to sense unity, Tawheed, the oneness of everything within creation, which is itself a reflection of the divine Tawheed, the divine oneness, divine unity. But it takes time. It takes time to get to that, because we start off as babies crying and wanting milk, wanting food, wanting, I want. You know, our initial nature when we're born is like an egoistic nature. So it takes time for us to realize and to see beyond that, to transcend it. And suffering is, going back to the original thing I was discussing, suffering is connected to this. Because the more that we identify with the ego, the more we will end up suffering, because we are expecting to mold the world in our image, what we want. I want this to happen at such and such time. I've booked an appointment. I've set everything in motion. I've put the plans there. It should happen how I want it to happen. A lot of us think like this. And when we think like that, we're coming from a perspective of ego. That's not to say we shouldn't be organized and we shouldn't plan things. Of course, we have to. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge also that there's a lot more going on than what I want. And what I want, whether that happens or not, is dependent on so many other factors and all the other people around me. And I have to consider these things and not just expect what I want to happen. So when we start to realize that and accept it, we don't suffer as much, because we're realizing the reality is bigger than my desires and what I want to happen. And it's better if I tune into the reality, so that instead of demanding everything to happen my way, I'm more flexible. There was a Chinese spiritual person or philosopher called Lao Tzu, or Lao Tzu, as they often say in mainland China. Lao Tzu, he said that we should be like the water. Because let's say you've got a stone and you've got water. If you're like the stone, a lot of people in the world today will be like a stone. They think, be strong. A stone is very strong, isn't it? I mean, you throw it, it's gonna, well, hopefully you don't throw it at anybody, but if you did, it would hurt, you know? Stones are solid. Water is, it splashes, you know, water, it's flexible, it's fluid, goes everywhere. But which will defeat the other? Will the stone defeat the water, or the water defeat the stone? And this is what Lao Tzu pointed out. He said, be like the water. The water is flexible, and water can take any form. I can put the water in here or pour it in here, and that water will fill whichever object I put it in. It can take any form. The other thing is, water raining on rocks erodes them. Water splashing on rocks from the rivers or from the sea, it breaks those rocks. Either it's through getting inside the cracks within the rocks, it dissolves them, depending on the type of rock it is, or it smashes the rocks and throws sand and stuff against the rocks as it keeps moving, like at the seaside, which grinds the rocks away until all the rocks become sand and become silts. They're very fine particles. So actually the water defeats the rock. For a time, the rock may hold its own if it's put in water, but eventually the water defeats the rock. A suffering in life is because we become like a rock. We expect things to happen our way without realizing that most things within this creation are beyond our control. So unless we acknowledge that and realize that everything within this world, or most things, are beyond our control, then we'll be suffering because we keep thinking that things are under our control, which are not under our control. So when things don't go as we originally planned, then we panic, we get upset, we get stressed. This actually damages our health if we get too stressed, if we panic too often. And that creates suffering. Whereas if we acknowledge that things are not within our control, then we can start to put in place plans and strategies that fit the reality within which we're in. And that can help us to be less stressed, to be much calmer in how we go about our lives. And we can become more like the water, we can become more flexible. So whatever happens, we can adapt to that new situation in which we find ourselves. And of course, it's not something that's necessarily easy to do, and it takes time. But this is actually something which we find all religions are trying to teach us one way or another. Within Islam, we've got the story of Job alayhi salam. Also, even in the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the amount of suffering that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family and companions suffered. But in time, the situation changed. And some of that was by their own doing, but some of that was because Allah rearranged things. So the situation would be better for them. May Allah help us all with whatever difficulties and sufferings that we are going through. Make things easier for everyone on this earth. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. I will, inshallah, begin the dhikr. Before we start the zikr, it's always good to check our intentions. نويت الأبين نويت الأسثى نويت القوى نويت الاتكاف نويت السلوك نويت الرياضة لله تعالى في هذا جميع I intend to perform the 40 days of retreat. I intend to retreat in isolation. I intend to retreat in solitude. I intend to perform the retreat. I intend to follow the path. I intend to perform the spiritual practices for Allah, the highest, in this place of worship. Worship your Lord until He grants you certainty. And we begin with the Kalima Shahada, the testimony of faith. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. We seek Allah's forgiveness by reciting Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah, 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 Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullahalazim alladhi la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum wa atubu alayh. Innahu huwa at-tawwabur rahim. Ya musabib al-asbab, ya mufati al-abwab, ya muqallib al-qulubi wal-absar, ya dalail al-mutakhayyirin, ya ghayth al-mustaghaythin, ya hayyu ya qayyum, يا ذو الجلال والإكرام وفريد أمر الله إن الله بصير بالعباد رب التشريف. Direct your heart to the heart of your Shaykh. Al-Fatiha Sharifa. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin Ar-Rahmanir Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in ihdinas siratal mustaqim siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghayril maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين صلوات الشكر اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم 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 اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. ألم نسرة الشريفة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نسرة لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. إخلاص الشريفة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. فاتحة الشريفة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. صلوات الشريفة. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. 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 اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم 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 اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. بسم الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي قد أتيتني من الملك ورمتني من توالي وحديث فاتر السماوات والأرض أنت وليه في الدنيا والآخرة توفاني مسلما والإقني بالصالحين آمنا بالله صدق الله العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. إلا الشرف نبي وآله وأصحابه الكرام وإلى الله أنبياء والمرسلين وأخذ معي شرعهم وإلى إماتي أبواب وإلى مشايخنا في تاريخ نقشبندية تيارية قصتان إلى آلك وجرقان الفاتحة. بسم الله. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta 'alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi 'alayhim waladdallin. There is no God except the God. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel, wa la quwwata illa billah al-aliyyil azim. Illa sharaf bi nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa ali wa ashabi khiram. وإلا واهي صيبي سرتينا والصديقيون الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Amen. The remembrance of God. Allah, 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 أسبدنا ونواكي وربول وذاك قواتنا إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسب الله ونعم الوكيل وذاك قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حق 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 حق. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. هاي 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 هاي. حسب الله ونعم الوكيل ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الله الله حق 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 الله 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 Allah, hey, Allahu, 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 Allah, hey, Allah, hey, ya Qayyum, 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 Allah, hey, ya Qayyum. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل والحول والله قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Yahoo, Yahoo, Yadai. Yahoo, Yahoo, Yadai. Yahoo, Yahoo, Yadai. Allah, Yahoo, Yadai. Yadaim, 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 Ya Allah, Yadaim, 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 Ya Allah, Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Allah, Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Allah, Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Allah, Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Allah, Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Allah. Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Allah, Ya Ghaffar, Ya Ghaffar, Ya Ghaffar, Ya Allah, Ya Ghaffar, Ya Ghaffar, Ya Ghaffar, Ya Allah, Ya Ghafur, Ya Ghafur, Ya Ghafur, Ya Allah, Ya Ghafur, Ya Ghafur, Ya Ghafur, Ya Allah, Ya Sata, Ya Sata, Ya Sata, Ya Allah, Ya Sata, Ya Sata, Ya Sata, Ya Allah. Ya Fata, Ya Fata, Ya Fata, Ya Allah. Ya Fata, Ya Fata, Ya Fata, Ya Allah. Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Allah. Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Allah, Ya Mu'in, Ya Mu'in, Ya Mu'in, Ya Allah, Ya Mu'in, Ya Mu'in, Ya Mu'in, Ya Allah. Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Allah. Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Allah. Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Allah. Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Wadud Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, Ya Allah, Ya Rahim, Ya Rahim, Ya Rahim, Ya Allah, Ya Rahim, Ya Rahim, Ya Rahim, Ya Allah, Ya Karim, Ya Karim, Ya Karim, Ya Allah, Ya Karim, Ya Karim, Ya Karim, Ya Allah, Ya Hanan, Ya Hanan, Ya Hanan, Ya Allah, Ya Hanan, Ya Hanan, Ya Hanan, Ya Allah, Ya Manan, Ya Manan, Ya Manan, Ya Allah, Ya Manan, Ya Manan, Ya Manan, Ya Allah, Ya Dayyan, Ya Dayyan, Ya Dayyan, Ya Allah, Ya Dayyan, Ya Dayyan, Ya Dayyan, Ya Allah, Ya Subhan, Ya Subhan, Ya Subhan, Ya Allah, Ya Subhan, Ya Subhan, Ya Subhan, Ya Allah, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Allah, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Allah, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Allah, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Allah, Ya Salam, Ya Salam, Ya Salam, Ya Allah, Ya Salam, Ya Salam, Ya Salam, Ya Allah, 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 Ya Allah. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Salawat wa sharif. Bismillah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Ali Muhammadin wa sallim. صلي الرب وسلم على جميع أنبياء المرسلين وعلى أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. على أشرف نبينا سيدنا محمد صلوات على أفضل نبينا سيدنا محمد صلوات على أكمل نبينا سيدنا محمد صلوات صلوات الله وبركاته وأنبيائه ورسوله وجميع كوكي على محمد وعلى آل محمد عليه وآله السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته وبركاته تبارك وتعالى سادتنا أصحاب رسول الله أجمعين وأن تبينا بهم بإحسان وأن مسدين أمدين وأن يولي المتقين وأن يولي الصالحين أما الشيخين بتلك نقشبندي آلية قد صدعت اللهم الزاخية وأنه لا ترات مباركة ودلاه تعالى علينا من بركاته وفيداتهم دائما والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Ya Allah, we ask that you bless the Prophet Muhammad and his noble family more and more for all eternity, Ya Allah. And we ask that you bless all of the Sahaba Ikram, the Ahlul Bayt, the Khilafah Rashidin, and all of the ulama and the awliya, the scholars and the saints throughout the ages, Ya Allah. And Ya Allah, we ask that you bless especially my sheikhs, Sufi Abdullah and Maulana Sheikh Nasib. Ya Allah, raise their stations in your divine presence and bless their souls for all eternity. Allah, show your blessings also on Sheikh Sharif Hidayatullah, all of the Wali Songbook, Sheikh Yusuf, Gustur, Sheikh Hadain Badruddin, and my beloved father. We raise their stations in your divine presence and bless their souls for all eternity. Ya Allah, bless my mother, bless our mothers and fathers, bless our brothers and sisters, bless our aunties and uncles, our cousins, our nieces and nephews, and especially our beloved spouses, our husbands and wives, our children. Ya Allah, bless our families, grant your divine protection upon our families, grant your forgiveness to our families. Grant that we may be among those who are forgiven and blessed, among those who are with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and our sheikhs, and our loved ones on the day of reckoning. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, bless all of our friends and our communities. Bless especially those who are going through any kind of difficulties or sufferings, and make things easier for them. Ya Allah, bless everyone in our human family, and grant that everyone be blessed and forgiven and guided. Bless us with inspiration as to better live in this world, that we may live in harmony with each other and also with the environment and with all the other communities of creatures which we share this earth with. And Ya Allah, we ask your blessings upon the environment, upon Mother Earth, upon all of the other living creatures which we share this earth with. And we seek your forgiveness for the many trespasses and mistakes that we make against our fellow human beings and against the other creatures with which we share this earth, and against the earth herself. And we seek your forgiveness, your guidance, and your inspiration and support, so that as a human family we can turn this around and live in a blessed, harmonious state on this earth that is beneficial for all communities. And we also seek your blessing for all the other communities of sentient life within the universe. And that you grant that if we do expand out into space more, that we will have peaceful relations with our neighbors in the universe too. Ya Allah, forgive us all. Forgive us all, have mercy upon all of our souls. And bless especially the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu and our sheikhs. Sali Rabbi wa salim ala jami anbiya wa mursalin wa alinkurin ajma'in wa alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Fatiha. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Rahmanir rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إلى حضرات النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وآله وأصحابه الكرام وإلى أنبياء وإلى أولياء كستان روحي شان نقشبند وإلى الشيخ عبدالله فايز داغستاني وإلى زندبيا وإلى صوفي عبدالله وإلى مولانا الشيخ نازم وإلى مولانا الشيخ هشام وإلا قسطو وإلى الشيخ أدان بدرودين وإلى الشيخ بادشاه وإلى الشيخ حبيب الله وإلى الشيخ داود رسوين وإلى الشيخ محمد ديل وإلى الشيخ نوكباني وإلا صوي سرتين واسدكيون رباتها بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I hope you find these videos useful. If you do, please don't forget to subscribe to my Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you tune into these videos on. And also my website at paulisarmstrong.com so that you can stay up to date with the latest videos and posts. I wish everybody in the UK a very fine evening. We're just shortly going to be coming into Maghrib time here in Britain. And for everybody else around the world, I wish you all the very best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.